What is going on, everyone? Welcome back to Wildcat Cave. John Calipari has a dilemma on his hands. On one hand, you have Oscar Tschiebwe, a consensus National Player of the Year and one of the most beloved players in UK history. On the other, you have Hunter Dickinson, a second-team All-American, two-time first-team All-Big Ten, and Big Ten Defensive Player of the Year. Oscar has the option to come back, but will waiting on his decision cost Kentucky the number one ranked transfer in the portal? Coach Cal has to decide. Is waiting for Oscar worth losing out on Dickinson, or will Cal go all in on Dickinson and then run the risk of pushing Oscar away? In this video, I'll tell you what I would do if I was Calipari, and we'll talk a little transfer portal. Let's start with a little transfer portal news today. CJ Frederick posted that he would be entering the transfer portal and looking for a new home for his final season in college. CJ's time at UK has honestly been a little lackluster. After 2 seasons of shooting over 40% from 3 for Iowa, CJ struggled to really ever get going for Kentucky. His first season for the Cats, he struggled with injuries. He basically came to Kentucky with stress fractures in his shin, and as he was just about to get ready to play at the beginning of the 21-22 season, he tears his hamstring warming up. And then this season, he finally starts the year healthy, but honestly just really struggled to make shots when it mattered. Then this past season, just as the basketball Benny lineup started playing and winning, CJ gets hurt again with a broken finger. He tries to play through that and then ends up breaking a rib, which again, he tried to play through at the end of the year. Ultimately, he went from being a 47% three-point shooter for Iowa to a 32% shooter for UK. And most of the time, he just felt more like a 15% three-point shooter. I don't think all of that is his fault. I just think he couldn't stay healthy. I'm kind of surprised he is transferring. I believe that if he didn't return to Kentucky, he'd just kind of hang it up. He's engaged, and Blair announced that she was retiring a few weeks ago, and I thought that he would just kind of follow suit and they would start their lives together, but apparently he wants to give it one more go. If I had to bet, I'd say he ends up at a school close to Cincinnati, whether that be UC, Xavier, NKU, or maybe even like a Dayton or an Ohio State, but I bet he tries to stay close to home. Damien Collins also entered the portal today. This is one that most people saw coming a long time ago. I talked about it in a previous video, but with his father passing away so unexpectedly, you can't blame the kid for wanting to be closer to family. If it was strictly a basketball decision, he probably would have been back at UK this year. He's from Atlanta, Texas, so I would imagine he looks at schools like Texas, Baylor, SMU, maybe even Arkansas, all of which are within a few hours of his home. But now for the big problem Cal has. What does he do about Oscar and Hunter Dickinson? Late last week, it came out that Hunter Dickinson, who plays for Michigan, was interested in transferring to Kentucky. All of the early reports had him going to Maryland or Georgetown, but it seems like his interest in UK is very real, and UK has very real interest back in him. He's ranked as the best available player currently in the transfer portal, and even though I'm sure Cal would love nothing more than to play Oscar and Hunter together, I think it's been expressed that Hunter's only interested in Kentucky if Oscar isn't here, and he wants to make that decision soon. But then there's Oscar. Most people, I think including Cal, believe that kind of no matter what, Oscar would be going pro after this season. But now there are reports coming back to Kentucky about him coming back to Kentucky, and it's a very real possibility for him to return. He isn't exactly an ideal player in today's NBA, and the money at Kentucky would far exceed what he would make in the NBA or even the G League. I think Oscar's dream is to still play in the pros, but right now, I think he and his people both know that it makes more financial sense to return to college. But I think they also want to see the pro process all the way through to the end. The deadline to withdraw from the draft is May 31st, and like I said, Hunter Dickinson wants to make his choice sooner and not wait another month. So what do? If you're Hunter, if you take Hunter, you may run off a National Player of the Year and the most beloved player you've had if you're Cal. But if you wait, there's a chance that you bank all your money on Oscar and he still decides to turn pro, and now you're left with neither of them. Let's start with Oscar. Apparently, he's talked to the staff and he has told them that he understands the situation and giving his blessing, for lack of better words, to pursue other options in the portal. Now, we all know what Oscar can give you. He can at any point give you a 20-point, 20 rebound game almost at will, and he's a National Player of the Year and a two-time All-American. But he's also been exposed a lot on defense this season. He gets beaten pretty easily. He struggles with length, can't really protect the rim, and clogs up the middle quite a bit because he isn't a real threat from the outside. Hunter Dickinson was an 18.9 rebound guy for Michigan this season. He's a little bit more of a modern center than Oscar has been, with the ability to move with the ball and kind of stretch the court. He, like Oscar, is pretty efficient around the rim, but he's 7'1", so he has, 4 or 5 inches on Oscar. I think he's a little bit more of a rim protector than Oscar is, but he only averages about one more block per game. He's also decently quick for a big guy, but just not really an outstanding athlete. Just with his height alone, though, he won't have those matchup problems that Oscar did against other 7-footers. He can be a little careless with the ball, which sometimes, of course, leads to turnovers. Overall, I think if you're Kentucky, you'd be happy with either option, as long as you don't lose out on both. I think both would be in contention for the best big man in college basketball next season if they play here, but they bring very different skill sets to the table. Oscar's efficient when scoring and can obviously rebound like we haven't seen in 50-plus years. Hunter is a little bit more modern. He can move better, and he's a little more versatile, but who is better? I don't know. You can make an argument for both. Talent for talent, I think you have to lean Oscar, but that's not all we are considering here. If the last few seasons have taught us anything, it's that fit matters, and roster construction absolutely matters. And I think there's a strong case that Hunter may fit better with next year's team than Oscar does. Think about it. Hunter can play outside of the post some, and if Cal's serious about playing 2 7-footers, like I think he is unfortunately, then having Dickinson next to Bradshaw makes way more sense because both of those guys are effective outside the paint. And when one can clear out a defender, it opens it for the other. Also, being an effective outside the paint scorer will force defenders to respect his long and mid-range shots, which opens up the lane for guys like DJ and Justin who like to drive to the rim. Whereas Oscar, they'd be driving into a clogged paint. We've seen it time and time again with Ty and Case in the past 2 seasons. Another thing, Dickinson is much more of a lob threat than Oscar. With Hunter and Aaron Bradshaw, we could get back to the old Calipari offense with pick and rolls leading to huge dunks. I just kind of think Hunter fits the style of players better next season than Oscar does. He also can shoot the 3 at a pretty good clip. He shot 42% this season from 3. I think he only took like 57 attempts. But either way, that's something you don't get with Oscar. And again, another way to stretch the floor at the 5 position, especially when you have guards like DJ and Aaron, or not Aaron, but Rob and Reed and guys who like to get to the rim. Not to mention, he plays with an attitude that UK's just lacked recently. He's one of those guys that can be cocky, and if he's on your team, you love it, but if you're playing against him, you hate it. He could be another one of those UK villain type people like Tyler Hero, PJ, John Wall, DeMarcus Cousins, and those guys. You couple that with the dudes like DJ coming here who are absolutely that type of guy, and it could be a very fun, old school, cocky UK team. Now, if it ends up with Oscar coming back next season, you won't hear a single complaint from me. I love Oscar, and while I think his style doesn't quite fit next year's team as well, he is still a generational talent and would be great. I'm by no means running him out of town or even hoping we get Hunter instead. I just think Hunter might fit a little better, and for what it's worth, I know how spoiled this sounds. Other fans are probably watching this going, wow, how terrible it must be to be Kentucky and having to choose between 2 All-Americans. But listen, we're having first world problems over here, okay? So just let us have it. Like I said before, I think Hunter wants an answer now, like this weekend now, and Oscar wants to wait. I do think Cal is fully pursuing Hunter as if Oscar is gone, however. Hunter said on a podcast that Cal even flew to Michigan to meet him for 2 hours on the runway this week and then just flew back out of town. He was even asked about the Oscar situation on the podcast and said that what Cal told him made him feel comfortable enough to take a visit to UK this weekend. I expect we hear more about this early next week, but until then, we're just going to have to wait. That is going to wrap up this week's video, guys. Thank you all for watching. Let me know in the comments, who would you rather have next year, whether that be Hunter or Oscar, and who else would you like to see Cal pick up from the portal? Be sure to subscribe. We're getting really close to 1,000. I'll see you guys next week. Go Cats.